Shadow Priest is looking to be like one of the strongest contenders for one of the most powerful, most fun, and most visually stimulating specializations that you could pick to play in the War Within. I absolutely love the hero talents and the flavor and diversity of builds that they apply to the specialization, and in today's video we're going to be covering some of those builds that I have discovered so far that are really making me enjoy the specialization. Now, the main prime feature of the expansion, I think, for Shadow Priest is the Void Weaver hero talent tree. It isn't to say that Archon isn't good, because it absolutely is. It's going to be a completely different playstyle, and it might be one that's more suited to you, and we will get to that. But Void Weaver is stealing the show at least a little bit for me, mostly based off of its visuals. Now, what the Void Weaver is going to be doing for you is it will allow you to channel in an entropic rift on the floor that just suctions and does massive damage in a little bundled area. But also, more importantly, is that it will also temporarily turn Mind Blast into Void Blast, and Void Blast will scale with talents related to Mind Blast, so things that increase its critical strike damage by 40%. We've got modifiers on Mind Spike that increase the critical strike chance of Mind Blast, which will then apply to Void Blast. So we can preemptively set up a massive burst hit, which is something that Shadow Priest was honestly lacking in the past, was the ability to hit this kind of burst single target moment that the Void Weaver is now going to enable you to be able to grab. So I think this is going to be really fantastic, and I'll give you a quick little rundown of it right here and now. So you can pre-get your dots on targets, obviously, and then you can get Mind Spikes out, get a couple Mind Spikes. That way we're stacking the crit modifier for our Mind Blast. Once we've got that fully stacked, we're going to jump into Archangel with Power Infusion. We're going to drop our Void Torrent, and then we're going to drop a Devouring Plague and hope we get an instant Void Blast amongst all this, and we did. And it's going to crack for a massive 2.1 milli, which is probably honestly on the low end of this. So if you are someone who plays Shadow Priest and you've been kind of like, you know, it doesn't really have that big spike moment. It's not really like grabbing me as much as it used to. You know, Shadow Priest used to have some really spiky bursts, especially in PvP situations. This build is definitely going to be one that you gravitate towards. It's going to give you way more finishing power. Not to mention that Void Torrent is a 30-second cooldown, so you can call in this Entropic Rift almost whenever you want and get massive Mind Spike critties onto these Void Blasts. Get a 2-tap right there, an instant proc out of a hard-casted one, and just absolutely demolish people in that window. And with it being just such a low cooldown, you're just going to feel like you have burst all the time. You can set up these moments and constantly look for kills. I think this is going to be a great kind of like solo carry build, whether you're doing solo shuffle arenas or you're doing the new battleground feature that's coming through. I think it's going to be really powerful. Dark Ascension is a really good coupling with this, just because of the critical strike chance modifiers on it, and the fact that it's a lower cooldown, being at 1 minute, synergizes way better with the Void Torrent on a 30-second cooldown, and just gives you this massive combo. Also, you couple this burst damage with a little Psyfiend. Ain't nobody surviving your wrath. There ain't going to be anybody surviving your wrath. It's going to be super fun, awesome. I love the visual simulation of this build. You also get the little Void Wraith as a temporary summon in for your Mindbender instead. This little guy, he's going to be blasting away. Your Mindbender's not going to get kited in BGs or Frostnova or something like that. You get some guaranteed damage from this extra little Void Pet that you're going to be able to summon in, which is great. Everything about it is great. It's got great personal survivability as well. It's looking highly durable. Things like Protective Light, giving Flash of Heal, giving you 10% damage reduction. So if you're interrupted on Shadow, you can toss out a Flash Heal that heals for a significant amount. Heals upwards of 400,000, and it gives you 10% damage reduction, and that's on demand. So if at any point you can just toss out this heal, get some nice recovery. Also, Power Word Life has been surprisingly powerful for me as well, with a 15-second cooldown, and it can get upwards of a 1 million heal. It's really good in these clutch low HP recovery situations. And then also we get Phantom Reach now, which is going to increase the range of our spells by 15 yards. So our range is now 46. I actually think that that's either comparable to Druid or possibly even longer range. So we're going to be able to stay away from fights, have access to massively more burst damage with this build, great team utility and survivability when we need it. We're really well rounded. We're gonna have decent overall sustained damage, which we'll get to in the next build of this video. But like everything about the specialization is just looking phenomenal. It's hitting it right on the money for pretty much anything that you could really ask for right now. And then if you were really wondering, you can run the Archon build. And I was liking running a Void Form Archon build because with this build, your Halo is going to be able to extend the duration of your Void Form upwards of 6 seconds. And you can get a really long duration Void Form. The other benefit is you can get a 2-tap Fear. So you can go for a Psychic Scream. And if these DPS just trinket it, and they're going to get feared again. So you can get like a double fear and punish people for using their trinkets too aggressively. I think that's a really nice kind of cheeky play added into that. You get a couple of extra seconds on dispersion as well, making that powerful defensive last longer and regenerate your heal longer. And you gain some burst damage out from this build and off healing. So you can get instant heals from Surge of Light. But with this more specifically for Shadow, Mind Flay Insanity and Mind Spike Insanity deal a little bit more damage. Now with this build, you are going to alter your talents. Let me see if I can hopefully remember exactly what I did with the alterations of the talents, but you pretty much drop a lot of keybinds to get a lot more AoE, and you're going to focus more around apparitions because shadowy apparitions are going to be doing a lot more damage. And you get access to some other pets as well, like the Idol of Yogg-Saron, which is super fun. You're going to be dropping burst with this, and the trade-off is that you're going to get a lot more dot ticks, a lot more apparitions, a lot more pets, and a lot more sustain. And I think the keybind bloat goes a little bit down with this build in particular. So if you're somebody who's struggling for keybinds, you do have options and flexibilities to talent trees that are going to provide you less keybinds. Although I do want to get this talent tree. How did I not get this? Shadowy apparitions deal 75% increased damage to Devouring Plague. It's a little bit more burst oriented, but you could honestly run the longer one with that as well. This is a build where I'm thinking that, I'm trying to theory craft it through a little bit more. And I'm sure that, the main Shadow Priest out there can come up with something that might be a bit better than this. But it's obviously going to have a lot of customization available to it. So if you wanted to run a longer lasting Devouring Plague and then get into Phantasmal Pathogen to make it so your Shadowy apparitions are hitting Devouring Plague targets harder, I think that would be a massive combo. And here just on the spot, I'm trying to think of how I would honestly want to get that in and weave that into the build specifically. You might honestly have to drop Void Volley. It really feels bad to drop Shadow Crash, but like this seems like a disgusting amount of damage. And obviously in a BG situation, you would want Shadow Crash. It's going to be a most easy way to get dots, but I didn't try this Devouring Plague combo, and I really want to try this specifically with this build to see how much damage it can get out. And obviously we need to spec into Void Form as well, as we're going to be getting that extra duration. So this is going to be more of like a dot-centric focused build, I think, for the Archon. A lot more multi-target, a little bit less assassinating power, but it's going to be more overwhelming damage that you're going to be able to do. Maybe it was the Mindbender that I dropped, actually, in order to get Shadow Crash, but we'll have to figure out that later and reorganize that as far as this. But mostly this build is just going to be focusing around keeping your dots up on your targets, getting into Void Form, and making it last a lot longer. So it's a little bit more similar to like the Legion play of Shadow Priest that you may remember if you've played back then. But we've got our Devouring Plagues coming through, and I like that longer lasting Devouring Plague. I think that that's going to enable us to get a lot more shadowy apparition damage, especially if we could somehow get to enough power to make it last on multiple targets. But I really like that it's like basically 100% uptime. It's granting me apparition damage onto that target. That's giving me a lot more burst. We can get our sustain going onto multiple dot targets, and our Void Form is honestly still going, and I'm playing pretty sloppy, right? Like our Void Form is still 3 seconds left, and I still got one more Void Bolt left in the pocket. It makes your Void Bolt last a really long time. It's going to just be spawning in apparitions, spawning in these things from beyond, giving you a lot of extra pet damage, and then just giving you a little bit more sustain overall. And I didn't spec Halo, actually. We just missed literally the entire point of this build, which is to go Halo, and we don't have it. I feel like that's actually, honestly, a bit of a flaw in the talent tree itself. The fact that I could literally accidentally not take the core ability from this when you're respecking back and forth. Like imagine if you were playing Void Weaver like I just was, and you respect and then you forgot that, oh no, I didn't switch that one point of the talent, because you don't normally play Halo, right? And you don't switch that around. This is like a point of feedback, honestly, for the specialization. I was wondering why my damage wasn't as high. It's because I literally don't have the core ability. Last time I was on the dummies, I was doing like millions of DPS on the AoE, and I'm like, why am I only 600,000 damage? Oh, we're missing the most important flavor of the talent build. So through this, we'll just keep our dots going on multiple targets, keep generating insanity for those Devouring Plagues, so our apparitions are going to be doing monstrous amounts of damage to those as we are spawning them in onto the target, and we can kind of save up for that big burst moment with our Void Form as we are going through this, and just focusing on spreading dots and spreading apparitions and spreading as many procs as we can, and working towards summoning things from beyond with the Idol of Yogg-Saron. So you're always working towards something with this build. You always feel like you're building up. You're not just kind of like sitting around and only waiting for Void Form, although that is an important part of the rotation. It's not the only thing you're doing with the Idol of Yogg-Saron, building up towards that. So we've got our thing from Beyond, we've got our Power Infusion off cooldown, we're going to blast into Void Form, we're going to get our Mindbender out, we're going to go for the Halo, and then this is where the fireworks really come in with this build. Our Halo is just going to sweep back and forth, extending the duration of our Void Form, amplifying our spells. We're going to continue working towards summoning more Idols of Yogg-Saron, and it really starts to turn up the heat. And you can see it adds so much extra DPS. Like, I almost doubled my DPS actually having the Hero Talent Tree ability on my bar. Fortunately, you know, maybe they can find a way to make it baseline as opposed to a choice node on the tree, because I feel like that would be devastating if we just accidentally forget to respec to it. But our Void Form is lasting way longer with that Halo. Like, we're getting like maybe like an extra 10 seconds on it. A lot of sustained damage coming through. And like I said, I'm sure that there would be ways to customize this even further than this, and I'm sure that builds will constantly adapt, especially given that it's such an early stage of beta. But this was basically the flavor and the idea and the concept that I had where this would be suitable and likely feel really good. And I like the double fear. You drop a Psychic Scream, summon an image, and then that image is going to Psychic Scream again a few seconds later. So if you can punish melee DPS training you that use really aggressive trinkets with that 2-tap fear to get them off of yourself, or even a healer in some cases if they don't time their trinket appropriately. So I really like Shadow Priest. This is easily becoming like a top contender for one of my favorite specializations in the next expansion. I love that you got build variety. You've got the ability to cover basically all types of damage that you didn't have in previous iterations of the game. So if you want fun bursty assassination setups, or just overall top the scoreboard meter damage, personal defense, utility, it's just the entire package is there. So I really like Shadow Priest. Would highly recommend it if you were considering it as a choice for the War Within. And if you like this type of content, then make sure to smash the subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated.